Connection defines people. Even when we aren't near them, we innately pursue connection with others through video, voice, or the written word. Connection gives us a tether to hold on to when others in the world show us the worst sides of humanity. In the face of generalized cruelty and malice, we seek a focused kindness. Connection is a two-way street, one we seek when we need it, and one we provide for others when they need it. Connection is at the core of kind words, lo-fi chill beats to write to. An opportunity to reach out to others and ask to be seen for a moment, or to give others a moment's respite from what ails them. Kind words serves as a reminder that there is inherent good in people willing to do good simply because they can. Through these fleeting connections we make with others, that goodness is magnified by research and science. For all intents and purposes, kind words maximizes the good vibes we put out into the world with data. Each element works in tandem with the others, four aspects that make up the core design loop of begetting and receiving kindness. Separately, they are each powerful, but together, they make for a genuine, truly kind experience. The first element is in writing kind words for others. When users jump to that menu, they are presented with a series of about 10 different requests from strangers, identified only by a first initial, like A or J or K. These requests range from people looking for advice, needing to vent, or seeking comfort during a particular moment in their life. Research has established the following. First, that when somebody seeks advice on a difficult task, the advisor, or responder in kind words, may perceive the decision to seek advice as highly competent, in that we think more highly of people who seek advice, like they're taking actionable steps to ensure that they're going to accomplish their task well. And secondly, that when we're asked to give advice, our egos get a boost. This person must think we're knowledgeable enough to help, even, in the case of kind words, if they didn't seek us out specifically. Even if a requester isn't seeking you and your advice specifically, their letter can still be a part of your pile, and you can still get that ego boost before responding, resulting in a more thoughtful, helpful, and kind response. The anonymous design of kind words is also intentional. Users are only identified by a single letter of the alphabet in what they write, whether requesting or responding. For example, based on my name, I chose to identify as M in kind words, along with a C of other M's. On that vein, helping should be most common among people who are able to maximize compassion while minimizing distress, and that focusing on the present moment and non-judgmental acceptance of others' experiences both predicted more helping behavior. To break that down, the anonymity, while initially distancing, removes the intimacy and specifics of the requester's issues, while leaving only the general information for responders to address. This maximizes responders' abilities to try and alleviate others' distress while simultaneously keeping them removed from the full scope of a requester's difficulties. In contrast, think of when we try to help people we actually know. It can be difficult to help them rather than comfort them because we know them. We may have our own preconceptions or personal understanding of their situation. It's not necessarily malicious, it's just natural. With the anonymous format of kind words, we are emotionally removed from the core of the requester's issues and, as such, able to help as effectively as we can. We do what we can, then we move on to someone else to try and help. Additionally, the anonymity puts us in a position of inherent trust with the requesters. They gain nothing by deceiving us, so we are led to believe they are telling the truth, especially that this issue or problem they are describing is occurring in the present. The anonymous separation springboards from the non-judgmental acceptance from earlier. We don't have a chance to learn everything about each other in kind words, so we accept people and their plights at face value. Responders have only the requester's present moment, how they are feeling right now, to respond to. The inherent trust in anonymous, one-lettered personas, along with the emotional distance between requester and responder, maximizes the responder's ability to help on a letter-by-letter basis. In kind words, I simply got to help others with the tools available to me. No strings attached, no convoluted process to it, just pure helping. And it was a lifesaver during the early COVID precautionary periods. During the stay-at-home period, I felt hampered by the feeling of being unable to help, and I'm sure I wasn't alone. In the midst of such nebulous uncertainty, kind words help me create new meaning in my changing life. Helping others can actually create a sense of meaning for people, no matter what form that help takes. Writing these letters is still a form of support that people may not be able to get from their family or friend circles, and it can mean a great deal to them. Kind words also recognizes that the act of helping, at least in regards to writing letters to strangers, is a process. In research mirroring a number of kind words' own mechanics, the following is suggested. In helping other people regulate their emotions and inhabiting their perspective, we can hone our own regulatory skills and ultimately enhance our well-being. These results are consistent with the idea that in helping others manage their emotional reactions to stressful situations, even in an online, not face-to-face way, we can practice and hone our regulation skills, which we can then apply to improve our own emotional lives. The simple translation is that by helping people, we grow emotionally. To help others with their problems, we are able to empathize, to put ourselves in their position and think, what would we do? We grow by playing hypotheticals in our head and sharing our thoughts and advice with those who have sought it. Subsequently, we can bank those thoughts and ideas for the event if we ever encounter what a requester needed help with. Think of the COVID safety precautions, especially in the early days. When we remind a friend that social distancing measures are temporary and this too shall pass, we are also, in effect, reminding ourselves and serving to regulate our own emotions. By helping others in this sense, we, even in some small way, help ourselves, whether directly in our shared experiences or indirectly as a hypothetical precaution. To understand the next point, we must understand the concept of elevation. Elevation is described as a positive emotion experienced upon witnessing another person perform a virtuous act, principally one that improves the welfare of other people. This research posits that elevation, spurred on by another person's good deeds, leads to increased altruistic behavior, based on documented behavior of the study's participants. So let's break it down with kind words. You write a request letter. Somebody, or somebodies, because you can receive multiple responses, respond to your request. When I get a response after requesting letters from the collective, I may not be magically cured of whatever's weighing on me, but I am boosted to go look at my own letters to respond to. I find myself elevated by the kindness and the effort of others, and that elevation reflects in my own efforts as a responder. You can think of this cycle in kind words as birds in migratory V formation. When the lead bird, which doesn't benefit from the uplift-based physics of the cooperation, gets tired, it rotates to the back of the formation until it can lead again. Birds inherently know that they are more efficient and go further when they work together and rely on one another. Kind words offers up a similar cycle. You start as either a responder or a requester. As a responder, you do what you can, and when you run into hardships, you fall to the back of formation and get help from those around you. As a requester, you rely on the help from others until your strength returns. Once it does, you are able to take the lead and respond to people again. Or, putting it more simply from kind words' store page, use your words to lift others and be lifted in return. The cycle perpetuates. In spite of everything that we see in the world, daily human life is not defined by the destruction, exploitation, or indifference we are most exposed to. Person to person, we care deeply for each other. Given the chance, be it in a small or large way, we would rather help one another than not. When we see someone in need, we want to help them. Kind words bridges that gap by showing you people who are asking for help and giving you the tools to help them in some small way. The other main element of the kind words cycle is requesting kind words, writing and sending out a 7-line request into the ether and hoping for a response. Some hope for advice, others for comfort, some to share their joy, others for a void in which to air their grievances. No matter their reason, requesters are still requesting help from the kind words community. It's important to recognize why people might be seeking advice on an interactive experience like kind words, as opposed to the people that they have in their life. To consider why it's so difficult for some people to ask for help in general, even to take the first step in something like kind words, you have to go back to those formative years. In one's upbringing, were they in a position to ask for help? Who were they able to ask for help from? How were they treated when or if they asked for help? Some family units and settings value independence over collaboration. Some reinforce how futile it is to ask for help. All of these situations and settings, even if they aren't intended to be harmful, make it that much more difficult to reach out and want to reach out for help. Further, even if someone is comfortable asking for help, there is an inherent power balance that people consider when they reach out for help, even if it's all in our heads. What will it cost me now or later in order to get help? No one likes to feel indebted, plain and simple, and that has an effect on if, when, or how we reach out. Even emotionally, we can feel incompetent by asking for help. Think of who might be around or accessible when you run into problems. Coworkers at work, or family at home, or friends when you're out with them. More often than not, people who know you are the most accessible to you. Recall research from earlier stating those who seek advice are viewed as competent by those they are asking help from. Now, in spite of that peer-reviewed truth, I can attest that my tiny lizard brain still thinks otherwise. Lizard brain tells me that my coworkers will think less of me, that my friends will shake their heads at me, that my family will balk that I don't already know or do this thing, that I can do this on my own. I don't need help, I just have to do it. Additionally, we project our own feelings about what we need help with onto those we ask help from. We often find ourselves locked into a mindset where, should we ask for help, those we ask will be focusing on the effort or unpleasantness of the request rather than a more positive and altruistic perspective. We get into our own heads and, in doing so, lock ourselves out of getting help. But you don't run into those problems on kind words. Thanks to the degrees of separation and anonymity, interacting with strangers on kind words helps to make asking for help, whatever form that help takes, more accessible than in real life. They don't know my life, and they don't know me, and we don't have to worry about someone taking a negative perspective on assisting us. That's why people use kind words. It's a safe place to ask for help, and that call goes to a community that is on the program in order to help with what burdens me. Little by little, this form of requesting can help build a user's confidence to change their own habits in the rest of the world, allowing us to learn how to be more comfortable asking for help from others. But even before habits, before challenging and changing our preconceived notions of asking for help, kind words cultivates a community that ensures no one feels indebted past a sticker. No one judges you for being weak. No one is rejected, and no one is seen as a burden. You are there for help, and you need only ask for it. And that's the main cycle of kind words, responding and requesting. But both parts are complemented by gifting stickers. Stickers have two primary uses in kind words. First, as a gift in a letter from responder to requester, or second, as a thank you from requester to responder after they receive the letter. Every user in kind words starts off with a single sticker out of the entire multi-volume collection. The only way to gain more stickers is to receive them from other users, whether as a requester receiving it with your letter, or a responder receiving it with a requester's thanks. However, there is no penalty for not sending stickers, nor any reward for sending lots of stickers. You are merely sending stickers out into the void, a gift you will never see the recipient's reaction for. But perhaps, amidst our many sheets of sticker-based love language, what we are really flipping for is gift-giving and gratitude. Gift-giving, for these purposes, can be summarized with three obligations from sociologist-anthropologist Marcel Mauss, historically visible in the oldest behaviors of humans: the obligation to give, receive, and repay. Mauss posits that societally we have been able to progress through our peacekeeping efforts, which began and persevere in the acts of gift-giving. The same cycle can be seen in kind words. As mentioned, responders can give a sticker to the requester, which the requester receives. The requester can then send or repay the responder a sticker as thanks for their letter. Assuming all parties send stickers whenever possible, then why wouldn't you? They're adorable. The cycle of gift giving is completed with every full exchange, starting all over again for the next batch. This is effectively a self-perpetuating cycle. When someone receives kindness or generosity, like a gift, they are inspired to do likewise, if not more. While the process is limited to only a single person at a time in the letter-writing mechanic of kind words, that is still a cycle completed and easily perpetuated. Aside from the gift-giving cycle, our brain's reward centers are triggered when we receive a gift, encouragement, or assistance from others. When our brains are riding that high, we're that much more likely to reciprocate and help someone else. Others, in this case the requesters in kind words, bear witness to that kindness and may be inspired to act kindly as a result. A study has shown that kindness to weak social ties have equally positive effects on happiness. Again, we may not know these people that we're responding to, but that doesn't diminish the good that we're doing, nor the good that we're feeling in trying to help them. It's a simple conclusion, but the act of giving gifts is in line with our societal origins, and it doesn't matter that we're giving these gifts to or receiving them from complete strangers. We still get the warm fuzzies from receiving, and we are inclined to spread those warm fuzzies to others as a result. Final results: stickers equal scientific happiness. All throughout kind words, as long as you don't mute your system or the program itself, users are awash in low fidelity or lo-fi music. Lo-fi music is defined by the audibly imperfect elements of the recording process, sometimes as a deliberate choice. Its popularized existence now can be attributed to 24/7 playlists on YouTube, primarily to chill, study, or sleep to. In the case of kind words, Clark Aboud's lo-fi chill score makes a perfect playlist to write letters to. Lo-fi music falls into the low arousal category of music, in that it has less going on than more intense, high arousal music. Now, there's nothing wrong with high arousal music, but research shows that it's more distracting, forcing listeners unconsciously or otherwise to focus on the music instead of the tasks at hand. There's a sweet spot for low arousal concentration music. The best concentration music is aesthetically pleasing enough that it's fine to listen to them for long periods of time, but not so aesthetically pleasing that you want to stop everything and just listen. Generally speaking, what makes lo-fi or other work-based playlists so effective is their neutrality. Ideal work music doesn't inspire feelings that are too positive or negative. They lack lyrics, and they generally have a middling tempo. A tempo not so slow that it relaxes listeners completely, nor so fast that it amps listeners up. The imperfections that define lo-fi also contribute to one of its strongest elements, the blanket. Vinyl sizzle and tape grain, staples of lo-fi, provide a high-frequency hum that lays over the other sounds, muffling the auditory shock that instruments would usually give. Think a snare drum beat or a guitar strum. This allows listeners to hear the music without the punch of musical shock, maximizing immersion into the music and, in the case of kind words and otherwise, the tasks it serves as background for. Most music in games is designed to play around us, to set the stage, to set a mood, or complement a character or event, just as much an element of the experience as the aesthetic or the narrative. The lo-fi music in kind words is intentionally composed to fade into the background and complement the whole experience. The chill beats brush against your brain, present but not overwhelming you as you more fully concentrate on the main task at hand, helping others and finding the words to ask for help yourself. Kind words is a thing of scientific beauty. It makes us feel great by doling out advice, helps us grow as people through our own advice, makes the act of asking for help more accessible than ever, presents a no-strings-attached avenue to fulfill our love of exchanging and receiving gifts, and all with a curated playlist designed to maximize our concentration on this cycle of kindness. Every piece of the experience is designed to be the most accessible, most wonderful, most scientifically proven, most kind experiment in what people would do for a stranger and what they gain by being kind to strangers. It is impossible to save every starfish who's landed on the beach or respond to every letter written in kind words. And yet, in times where cruelty, inequity, and hatred are screaming into a megaphone, I am reminded of Patton Oswalt's touching sign-off from his special Annihilation. It's chaos. Be kind. Even if it feels small, even if you don't think you can help them, even if you think they already have that sticker, It may not feel like enough, but kindness is not measured by its widespread impact. It is measured by its mere existence. You can respond to this letter, send this sticker, make a difference in this person's day or week or life. You can be kind. Silently, I sought and picked up a still living star, spinning it far out into the waves. I understand, I said. Call me another thrower. Only then I allowed myself to think, he is not alone any longer. After us, there will be others. Kindness is one of the few resources in our world that cannot be drilled, mined, or harvested into oblivion. Go put some more out there. Throw some of these starfish back into the ocean. Be kind in whatever way you can. The male deer is always ready to deliver.